Hey guys, welcome to another season of Reza Riffs. We're getting ready to rock and roll. I apologize if I sound a little out of the weather or tired. It's 7:30 in the morning right now, and I'm doing an early interview because my guest is on a different time zone, so I had to wake up early. And Alan Lee and Victor Pacheco, they're not going to be here for this one. I'm actually doing two interviews this for this season today, and they won't be here because of the earliness. But the show must go on, and I gotta do it. Uh, I got a couple good news. My special's getting re-released on a different format. It'll still be on Mad Records, but now it's going to go on DVDs and all that jazz. So you could order it and buy them there. And I'll promote the link on the social when it comes out. But it's pretty cool. Jamal Crawford, who's a good friend of mine, who actually helped produce it for Mad Records, he said it was one of the best specials, and he put it to his other company. So the good news, that's the good news, is it'll get more views and more sales. And for those of you who know my career, I think my special is one of the best specials ever. So I'm very excited for that. That more people get to watch it and hear it, and you know that's that's why I did it. I'm currently writing for a new special. I don't know when that will happen. People ask me all the time. I'm very different from other comics. Like most comics can probably do a new special once every 3 years. For me, it's a lot harder because especially with COVID happening, like I'm not getting up as much as I used to. So I'm just trying to polish the material that I have an idea for. But hopefully it'll come out 2023. Um, that's the goal, to shoot it at least, is 2023. So I'm working hard on that. You could also book me on Cameo. Uh, it's that time of the year where holidays are coming up. So I would love to do your cameo for birthdays, shout outs, all that stuff. Help me get some green to, get family Christmas presents. I I think holidays, the older you get, the more cherishable they should be, but the less valuable they are. I don't know if that makes any sense, but when I was young, I used to love holidays because you could like hang out with family and stuff. And now, the older you get, especially with this pandemic and all the craziness we've had, it seems like holidays are no longer taken advantage for. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, or maybe that's coming off wrong. I don't know. I'm not very good by myself. I decided I need Alan or Victor or Rosie. But Rosie was going to do it, but she's on her way to OC because we have to go and studio to do an interview for a gig that we're co-headlining. I don't. I'd promote it on this, but I'm sure it would already happen by the time this gets released. But Rosie Tran and I are going to start doing a co-headlining thing. We're trying to get more dates in the books too. Anyways, enough of that jazz. Subscribe, rate, review if you like the show. Today we got a great guest. You've seen him on the Today Show. Space Ghost. Space Ghost was probably the best talk show host of all time. And the Martin Short Show. You guys are going to love this next guest. The great Flip Orley will be here via Zoom on Reza Riffs.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Hello.
Hey, Flip, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Thank you so much for rifting with me via Zoom.
Well, you're welcome. Happy to do it.
I wanted to ask you, do you think that now it's easier, like with the whole pandemic, to do interviews because of Zoom, or do you have more fun like in studio, face to face?
So, I don't like Zoom. I don't like FaceTime. I don't like technology. I don't like big tech.
Yeah,
I mean, I use them. I've got a smartphone. I use GPS. I mean, I use the stuff that I absolutely need in these modern days. I don't like it. I will never, as long as I live, ever buy an electric vehicle ever. Um, I don't care. I don't care. Like I don't care what the trendy thing is. I'm not going to own a Tesla. I'm not going to get a Ford F-150. Goes 0 to 100 in 3 seconds. I don't care. I'm good old gas. And in
right.
fact, I'd like a 1970s car with no computers. I don't like computers. Oh man, I'm ranting. Look at me go. Um, but the thing of it is, like when the pandemic hit, I had some very, very nice people ask me to do like Zoom this and Zoom that. And they understood it would be hard, obviously, to hypnotize people as a show on Zoom, but even just do stand up. And, I have a very specific attitude about stuff. And it's like, if I can't do a live show in front of a live audience at a club, I'm retiring.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to. So I mean, the thing that's cool about, I guess, Zoom is that, like, I can't. You and I talked about doing a podcast, but I'm not
For like
necessarily
3 years, and we're finally doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not necessarily in your location. So this is a good alternative.
Yeah.
But it's an alternative. It's not. It's not my preference.
Yeah. I agree. Because I feel like with stand-up comedy, it's funner to be like with an audience too, just like interviewing, because I think that's, I feel like podcasting are replacing the late night stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, and that, I think there's a good reason for it. In the day, and again, I'm older than everybody who will listen to this podcast. It used to be that late night TV was supposed to be entertaining. So whether you're talking about Carson, which nobody will remember, or at least David Letterman, which at least some people might, maybe even Leno, it was fairly non-political and it was all about entertainment. And now, late night TV is all about appealing to certain political views. And whether a person agrees or disagrees with those views, I disagree with the format. I disagree with the premise.
Yeah.
I think that things should be entertaining. So I've been on a lot of podcasts where it focused on silly and fun and informative. And, and that's my preference.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, you've been doing comedy for, I would say 30 years at least, right? Because you started I remember when I was in 94, you were at the Irvine Improv and I wanted to go. And my parents said I couldn't because it was an 18 or over event. And I was like 9.
Well, 9 might've been a little bit young. I mean, here's the thing. I've been doing it over 30 years. So you're absolutely right, by the way.
because I'm 35. So
I'm older than you.
Yeah. So I remember I was 9 when I wanted to go, because I remember I saw a hypnosis at a fair, and at the marquee it said your name, Hypnosis, and I wanted to go. Right.
I love the Irvine Improv, as well as the Brea Improv, which is obviously in Brea, California. I used to work those clubs a lot. Had a great time doing it.
Yeah.
But so I've had here's the funny thing. Like, I don't necessarily have a dirty show, but there's some language. And at the front part of the show, I tend to talk about my personal life, which has been a bit of a shit show, But,
I think everyone's has.
Yeah, to one degree or another, right? So, so it's not necessarily that it's appropriate for 9-year-old, but parents know their kids. And I've had parents bring, not often, but kids coming in, and after the show, I'll go, look, I'm sorry, I was talking about what I was talking about. They're like, no, I knew it. It's fine. My kid, is mature enough to understand. I'm like, all right. But I've done shows before where someone has like a 10-year-old or whatever in the front row. I guess assuming that I'm going to modify my show for that one person out of 300, and I don't. Like, I don't make it dirtier to prove a point.
Right.
But I won't clean it up. Like, I'm not going to go, hey, 299 people, you're going to get a watered down version of my show because someone brought their 10-year-old. So like that.
The 10-year-old fucked up the show.
Yeah, for everyone. So yeah, I mean, I did a show in Louisiana where a guy, and I think I was told he was a judge. He brought his like 8, 9, or 10-year-old granddaughter, and he sat in the front row, almost like he wanted to intimidate me or let me know that he was there. And I didn't pull a single punch. I didn't make it dirtier, but I did not drop a single story out of my show. And 15 minutes in, he walked out.
Wow.
But like, you know what, dude? What are you gonna do?
Now, is that like, because usually the walkouts, from my experience, I've noticed usually happens during the opener and the feature. Like if the opener and the feature suck, the people will walk out. But you don't usually have an opener and feature. You just do your one.
Yeah, not usually. I never did.
Yeah.
The last time I think I did, I want to say it was in Mississippi. It was Mississippi years ago. And so the opener, he was like, I don't know, 20, 21, 22 years old.
Uh-huh.
And he walked up to me and he goes, hey, you're the headliner. And I go, yeah. And he goes, I've got a problem. I go, well, what's your problem? And he goes, I've always been told, as I've been doing this like 2 months, right? So I've always been told for the last 2 months that when you do comedy, you have to start strong, you have to end strong, right? But you can sort of mess around in the middle. And I go, all right. And then I've got this joke, and I don't know if I open with it or I close with it. And he told me the joke, and I don't remember the joke, but the punchline was he found corn in his shit.
Right.
That was the punchline. And he goes, so I don't know what to do. This is my problem. Do I open? Do I close with it? Yeah, that's not your problem. He's like, what? I go, yeah, your problem is you shouldn't be doing comedy. Like that's horrible. Like, you don't get it. You need way many more open mic nights before you even consider taking a job on like a weekend. And so then his introduction, I swear to God, his introduction, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome. Hey, what's your name? That was my introduction.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm done. I'm not doing openers anymore.
Yeah. Openers suck. But I like, if I was you and I had a time machine, I'd go back and I'd be like, oh, that's not your problem. Your problem is you shouldn't eat corn.
That's actually a better, you know what? Good for you. I was trying to send a message that he probably should go ahead and bow out of the show. But you know what? Nutritional decisions actually a very, very good point. Good for you. or at the very least, you know what? Maybe you want to chew your food more.
Right. So, when in your career, when did you start bringing hypnosis into the comedy? Because I know you do some comedy too.
Yeah. So when I was young, like 4, 5, 6 years old, something like that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a comic. And then when I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, wanted to be a comic. Always wanted to be a comic. That's all I ever wanted to do was be a comic. And then in 6th grade, I got a book called How to Pick Up Girls Through Hypnosis because I wanted to ask a girl to go to a dance with me. Right. So that was the first book on that. And it failed miserably and whatever. But when I was 18, I started getting up on stage as a comic. Meanwhile, I did a lot of studying of hypnosis through high school into college and actually beyond college, but just sort of as a hobby and not to hypnotize women. Just I thought it was a really cool field. And, for like improving your memory and doing better with test taking in school and sleeping better and stress management. And so those kind of things kind of interested me, but my focus was absolutely comedy. So I did stand up exclusively from about 18 to 21 or 22. Mm-hmm. And then I had a roommate who kept bugging me to try hypnosis on stage. And I'm like, dude, I'm a comic, or I want to be a comic. And he's like, do hypnosis. I'm like, I want to be a comic. And so we went round and round. And then after about 6 months, I said to him, I go, if I do a show with hypnosis on stage, will you get the fuck off my back? Yeah. Like, would you just never bring it up again? And he goes, yeah. So I contacted a local club in Phoenix, Arizona, which is at the time where I was living. And I talked the guy into letting me do a set on an open mic night with comedy and hypnosis. And it surprisingly worked really well and was fun and was well received by the audience. And that was sort of the impetus to sort of changing the direction.
It's kind of funny because it seems like your friend at the time wasn't really a friend. It was more like an annoyance, you know what I mean? To get you to do
He was
something.
a dear friend, but he was a huge noise. It was pissing me off.
And then it turns out years later, it turns out to be your best friend because he gave you this, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I will never give him credit.
It's like, oh, I was going to do it anyway. I just did it to make you shut up.
Yeah, you know what? I was waiting another year, but fine, whatever. I'll do it now. No, you know, I mean, and the guy was like a childhood friend. We were friends from elementary school.
Yeah.
But I still won't say his name or give him credit because you know what? It turned out to work out really well. So,
yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you, like, when you decided to do that, because it has worked out well because of the reasons where, like, you know, if you see comedy, say there's 100 comedians, I would say 99 of them do stand up, and you know, one of them will do like improv, and then like if there's 1,000, only 1 or 2 of them will do hypnosis. So you're like one of the power ones in that group. You know what I mean?
yeah, you know, when I started, and again, I was born and raised in Phoenix, and I started doing open mic nights in Arizona. There and I found this to be the case, I think, throughout the country. Let's say you've got, like you say, 100 comics, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 85 will be monologists, stand-up comics, right? And then there'll be the one comic magician, and then there'll be the one comic ventriloquist, and there'll be the one comic guitar act, you know, or because there's always going to be that one person who wants to do something that's comedic, but with some kind of variety to it.
Right.
And like I was a very hardcore stand-up, want to be a stand-up, want to learn the art of stand-up comedy. So it was really kind of a bitter pill to swallow to actually add in hypnosis because I didn't want to be considered a variety act.
Right.
But it was just so much fun and so unpredictable and so improvisational that I really came to embrace it and love it. But initially I was very turned off by the idea. But even in Phoenix, there was I think we had 2 comic magicians, 1 comic ventriloquist, 1 or 2 guitar acts, myself, and then everybody else were just straight stand-ups.
Yeah. It's kind of like when I go to the Hermosa Beach Comedy and Magic Club, you see 10 great comedians and you see 1 magician who you've seen every single time you go there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yep. It's like you kind of think they should just get rid of the magic part of the show.
Well, if they're not going to do it, yeah, you would think. Yeah. But and I mean, and this is probably an ugly thing for me to say, and I don't mean to be ugly. It's more of an observation.
Right.
Comics, for the most part, I mean the good ones anyway. There's an unwritten rule that just says if you see another comic do their set, if you fall in love with one of their bits, or even if you're in the process of writing a bit that was very similar, then you don't do it because you don't steal other people's material.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a very, very important, like rule 1. You don't rip off people's bits, yeah. Right? And for some reason, variety acts, again, ventriloquists, magicians, jugglers, hypnotists, don't all subscribe to that rule. So what happens is I've found like a lot of variety acts shows look very, very similar because they're all doing sort of each other's bits.
Right.
To the point where the bits become sort of stock bits and like it doesn't matter who the performer is, you know that you're going to see the Chinese linking rings, right? Or you know you're going to see the like if a guy's juggling 3 balls, right? Mm-hmm. He'll jump up in the air and he goes, "Look, 5-ball juggling, ha ha ha," right? So, and that's really why I fell in love with like Penn and Teller and The Amazing Jonathan and people like that, because they decided that they were going to write a very unique, very specific to them show that you wouldn't see anyone else do and you wouldn't see it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Which I think is important. I mean, I've literally had, in the day before cell phones, I would have people come with tape recorders and like notepads. And now with cell phones, I've had other people who want to do stage hypnosis. They've literally come up to me and go, "Hey, that bit you do on blah, blah, blah. I love that bit. I'm going to do it too. And I think it'll work great in my show." It's like, you don't understand. Like that's my bit. That's not a stock bit. That's not for everyone. But unfortunately, a lot of people in variety don't look at it that way.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, like, I also feel that a lot of people in like who have those type of acts, like, so you're different because you have stand-up comedy, in your blood. A lot of hypnosis, they think they're funny, you know what I mean? So then they'll use on that, where they have no experience of being funny. They just have experience of being hypnosis. That's what I've seen, at least when I go.
I don't disagree with you. And again, there are some hypnotists, I would imagine, that are naturally funny people, or have also done stand up, or have also done whatever. But I've seen a bunch of them, and a lot, if the volunteers are very good that night, their show is very good that night.
Yeah.
And if the volunteers aren't that good, then they don't have a lot to fall back on.
Now, I want to ask you, on your show, like, how do you change the elements? Like, does it really fall down on the volunteers of the show, that when you're doing one set, like say you're doing a 7 o'clock show and then a 10 o'clock show, where the 10 o'clock show is probably more rowdy because they've been drinking more compared to a 7 o'clock shows?
The thing of it is, there's a handful of bits. Well, the structure of my show. Okay.
Right.
So I'll get up on stage, and it depends on a lot of factors. Is it a 1-show night? Is it a 2-show night? If it's a 2-show night, is it the early show or the late show? Because on a 2-show night, like a Friday or Saturday at a club, the first show I've got very little leeway as far as how much time I can do, because I have to be off stage by a certain time for the audience to clear out, for the club to clean up, set up, and then seat the second show, where I have more flexibility on a 1-show night, like a Wednesday, Thursday, or even on the late show. And then theaters, because I do small theaters also, usually those are always 1-show nights, so I have a lot more flexibility. So depending on how much time I have, I'll do a little bit more or a little bit less stand-up up front. And then once I get volunteers on stage, the first few bits I do are bits, but they're also deepening techniques, and they also let me sort of gauge where people are at. Are they taking it seriously or not? Are they focused or not? Are they becoming hypnotized or not? Are they resistant or not? So like I'll do like a couple muscle tests with your eyes, with your arms, rigidity tests, things like that. And hopefully the audience finds it interesting and maybe amusing, but it's not really the bulk of the comedy. It's just to make sure that people are getting hypnotized, getting more deeply hypnotized, and I'm getting to know them.
Yeah.
From there, there's a few bits that are absolute go-tos. In other words, if I either have not a lot of time, or if the volunteers aren't overly animated, there's 4, 5, or 6 bits I can go to through the course of a show that I know will 99 times out of 100 work pretty well, and it'll make the show entertaining, and it'll be fun.
Right.
But then if I have like more time to work with, and if the volunteers are animated and outgoing and creative, then I've got, honestly, hundreds of bits to choose from that I've been writing over the years. And I try to pick and choose those bits really carefully. And I try to pair the bit with what I think the volunteers are all about.
Right.
So in other words, if you're on stage with me and you're really, really verbal, but not you haven't proven yourself to be really visual, I will start gearing more and more bits to being like sort of verbal responses.
Right.
If on the other hand, you're on stage and you're not overly verbal, but you're very expressive and obviously visual, then I'm going to start gearing more bits to that. If the audience, if the volunteers don't really interact with each other well, then I'll choose bits that I think are more geared towards individual responses. If the volunteers for some reason are really interactive with each other, I'll try to choose bits where they interact with each other much more. So it's really like figuring it out from bit to bit, from night to night on the fly.
Now I want to ask you, because like I feel that there's some people who probably go to your show that they don't believe in hypnosis, but they go to be entertained. You know what I mean? Like, how do you like, for example, me, I believe in hypnosis, but I don't believe I could be hypnotized, because I feel that's just me. But I'm sure there's other people who feel that way too. You know what I mean?
That's the thing that's fun about doing hypnosis for entertainment as opposed to doing it for like a workshop or a seminar.
Yeah.
My hope is that 99 times out of 100, preferably 100 times out of 100, whether someone believes in hypnosis or not becomes irrelevant because they're at the club or the theater to be entertained.
Right.
And I've had people come up to me literally and go, "Hey man, that was funny. I laughed the entire show. I thought it was bullshit, but I still thought it was funny." And I'm like, all right, whatever. That's fine. It's fine. But so like, I'm not trying to prove anything.
Right.
I'm not challenging the audience. I'm not trying to prove anything. My show is strictly a silly show where I'm hoping people come for 2 hours, laugh, forget about the problems and the stresses of their day, enjoy a couple hours out, and then go home. So for instance, if you said, I fully believe in hypnosis and I think I can be hypnotized, I'm like, great.
Right.
If you go, I fully believe in hypnosis, but I know I can't be hypnotized, great.
Yeah.
If you go, I don't believe in hypnosis, I think it's all bullshit, but I came to laugh at people, great. I don't care.
My type of people. So far, you should come on in and buy a ticket.
The one thing that I don't want is when someone goes, I don't believe in hypnosis, I think it's BS, and I'm going to get up on stage to sabotage the show, or I'm going to heckle from the audience. Like, in other words, I don't care what someone thinks, but let's say there's 200, 500, 1,000 people in the audience. That one person who thinks my show is bullshit is entitled to think that, is entitled to not go to it, is entitled to walk out of it. What they're not entitled to do is to try to sabotage it and ruin everybody else's night out.
Does that happen to you a lot? Because with your, I know with comedians it happens a lot, being heckled and stuff, but I would think with your show it wouldn't happen that much.
Well, it doesn't. And I had to learn how to make it not happen.
Yeah.
So in other words, I think a lot of times when a performer gets on stage, you have to, for the most part, exude confidence, and you feel comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, and you want the audience to believe that you're good at what you're doing. But then there's that balance, especially as a hypnotist, where I don't want to come across as saying, I've got this power and I can hypnotize everyone, because you're inviting challenge and you're inviting people to mess with you.
Yeah.
And it's not true anyway. Like, I have no powers. I have no control over you. I have no control over a hypnotized person. What I'm doing is I'm helping them work through getting to their unconscious mind and creativity and accessing their own imagination. That's all I'm doing. What is their mind doing their thing?
I feel as a comic, when you allow people to heckle you because like you want to work that muscle, you kind of ruin your muscles in comedy. Like I used to tour with Bobby Slayton, and Bobby's Bobby's the king of hecklers. He could shut one down like that.
Yeah.
But the longer I did it and the longer he did it, like there just came to a point where he was just overdoing that but people came to see him do that, and he just wanted to do jokes,
Well, it's a balance. And I mean, again, my show's interactive. I get volunteers on stage. So, when people yell out, and it doesn't happen often, but when they do, my first thing is I'm trying to determine, are they being nice or are they being mean? Are they trying to be funny or are they trying to ruin the show?
Yeah.
Are they being supportive or are they, being not supportive? And so depending on what I think their motivation is, that's how I respond to them. So if they're being nice, I'll engage a little bit, but again, I don't want to derail the show. And especially on a 2-show night, like the early show, Friday, Saturday, I don't have a lot of time to play around because I have to sort of get to my show.
Yeah.
But I'll engage a little bit so long as it doesn't take over. And that's one of the aspects about live comedy I like, is that it is a live audience. It is unpredictable. It is spontaneous. I think that's fun.
Because about, 8 or 9 years ago, clubs used to do one show Thursday, 2 shows Friday, 3 shows Saturday, 1 show Sunday. Did the 3 show nights like really tire you out and tire your audiences, or like how do you, because I know an 11 o'clock show is very, very tough.
Well, I don't want to say anything to persuade a club owner not to book me.
Right.
But that being said, because I'm always honest and usually very candid.
Uh-huh.
I hated 3 show nights.
Yeah.
I didn't not like them. I hated them. And the reason is because as much as you have no flexibility or very little flexibility on a 2-show night, there's at least some. So for instance, if the first show started late or if it ran long, you know, you might start the second show 15 or 20 minutes later, whatever, which sucks. I mean, nobody wants to be kept waiting, but it still does happen. It's okay. But let's say, for instance, you have a pre-show night. First show starts 10 minutes late because the audience is slow in showing up. So the second show starts 30 minutes late. So then the third show will start 45 minutes to an hour late.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about an 11 o'clock show that's starting at 11:30, 11:45, 12 o'clock. People are already tired anyway, probably drunk and now cranky. And then you have to be off stage by like 1:30 anyway. So like it's, I felt like it shortchanged all three shows.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the other thing is, I mean, unless you're selling out all three shows, and believe it or not, I mean, there are definitely comics to this day, like, you know, upper end as an example, Chappelle.
Yeah.
You could put 5 shows in a night starting like at, 3 p.m. He'll sell out every show.
He'll even sell out a 3 a.m. show.
Exactly.
You know,
a lot of comics, including myself, and I have a pretty good following and I do pretty well and I sell out a lot of shows. But, you know, if you do like 80% first, like audience first show, because it starts at 6:30 or 7, which is too early for a lot of people, sold out the middle show, which is like the 8 o'clock show, and then have 50% or 40% for the late show. Why not just have 2 sold out shows?
Yeah.
And dump the third one.
I always hated doing the 3-night shows, especially when I was opening and touring with Norm, because Norm would do, especially Saturday when they usually did that, that would be the night where like the GM goes, you know what I mean, with you know. And I remember it was at Brea. Norm didn't like the GM, and you know, he thought he was a bully and stuff. So Norm did purposely on the 7 o'clock show, he did like 3 hours, and then on the 9 o'clock show, he did like another 3 hours, and then he comes up to me, he's like, I feel bad for the 11 o'clock show because they're not getting out of here till 5.
Wow.
So he did that purposely to piss off the GM, but it was hilarious. But I remember it was the longest night of my life.
That's crazy. There have always been a couple comics that did really, really long shows. Paul Mooney was one.
Yeah.
I think Carlos Mencia is one. Oh God, what was Hispanic comic? Pretty big fella, died a while back. Ralphie May.
Ralphie May.
Ralphie May. From
he was Hispanic?
I don't know. No, I only said that because one night, I think at the Tempe Improv, they were having like Latin comedy night, and he was one of the comics. So I just made the assumption.
Oh yeah. So I knew Ralphie a little. I thought he was a sweetheart.
Oh, I've heard nothing but great things about him. Nothing but great. But I've also heard that on occasion he would do a very long show.
Oh yeah, definitely. But like I feel like there's a difference between doing it if you have the material just to do, and then compared to doing it just to fuck with people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
now, did Norm have the material? I'm sure he had the material also.
Oh, yeah.
Did
he definitely had the material, but Norm was very he was very smart and sophisticated, and when he did that, you know, he did I want to say he did it all the times because the GM was like covering Ontario, Irvine, Brea, San Jose. So he did it mostly when we were in those clubs because he didn't like that GM. But, you know, like if he no longer works there, but it was Dan Goodfrey.
Oh, I know that name.
Yeah. So you know, but like when we did Tempe or Florida, he usually stuck to his 90 minutes and then got it. You know what I mean? So, and then
that was one of the many genius, and I've never met him, didn't know him. I know I'll never meet him now, you know, obviously, but one of the many genius things of Norm is that he was brilliant, but he was able to be really disarming so that unless you were really paying attention, he just seemed like kind of a dopey guy.
Yeah, he acted dumb, but he was the smartest guy I ever knew.
And that's what I've heard everyone say about him.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to ask you, because you got on Space Ghost, so like, which is probably the best talk show host of all time. So I wanted to, how did you get that?
So that's, in my opinion, kind of a funny, brief sort of, there's a backstory to it. So at the time I was married, and my wife and I were religiously, and like we would watch Space Ghost religiously, right? Loved it. Favorite show on TV. And, you know, show after show. And like it would, the consistency was like top notch and always funny and great guests. And one day I said to my wife after an episode of Space Ghost, I go, oh my God, you know, of like any TV possibility, I would love to go on Space Ghost. Like that would be my all-time favorite get as far as being on a show. And she looked me right in the eye and she goes, you're nowhere near big enough to be on Space Ghost. Right? Well, the next week, literally, I don't mean like a month or two down the road. I mean, like the next week I was working at the Punchline in Atlanta. And so after one of the shows, this guy came up and he goes, hey, I love your show. And I go, thanks. He goes, hey, I'm a producer on a show called Space Ghost. I don't know if you've heard of it. And I go, yeah, of course I've heard it. He goes, would you at all be interested in being a guest on Space Ghost? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Did you tell your wife that?
Oh, yeah. So so I was a guest on Space Ghost, and the way they did it was you'd sit in front of a green screen,
right?
And they had three guys, like one here, one there, and then one there, and they would just fire off questions back and forth. So you'd be talking, you go, you know, answer here, and then you'd answer there, then you'd answer there, and back and forth for like an hour. Could have been a half hour, but like for a long time. And then what they would do is they would take that video, and then they would write in different questions than the ones you like, ones where if they didn't like you, and I don't know that they like me, they like would ask a question where my answer would make me look like an idiot.
Right.
But I was constantly turning. So when I was this way, I was talking to Space Ghost. When I was talking like that way, is to Zorak, you know, and so on and so forth. And so I was so excited. I had no idea what it was going to look like. So after I did filmed it, like it was on TV 2, 3, 4 months later, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I invited everyone I knew to my house to come watch Space Ghost. And they could not have been meaner to me during the episode, which I expected. I mean, to the degree they were, I guess it was a little bit more than I expected, but I expected them to be mean. Right? Okay. Did you see the movie with Dave about the guy who pretended to be the president?
No, I didn't. Okay.
So there's a scene in that movie where the really, really, really evil guy tries to get the president impeached.
Uh-huh.
And he's sitting in his den with all of his supporters, because once the president's impeached, this evil guy's going to run for president. And so it's building and building. Everyone's like, yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And all of a sudden, the guy playing president like unloads all this material to say the evil guy was behind every horrible deed done, right? And so then they pan back into the guy's den, and everyone had left, and all the support signs were like on the ground.
Yeah.
Right? So I've got like 30 people in my house, and we're all watching Space Ghost, and I'm like sitting there just watching, laughing my ass off. And at one point I look around, and like everyone had left the den, like the movie Dave.
Yeah,
and they were all huddled in the kitchen because Space Ghost was so mean to me that they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to respond. They thought I was like going to cry or my feelings were hurt. They literally abandoned me like I was a leper.
It sounds like my experience when I was on Pit Boss, because I did a episode of Pit Boss, and my dream was always to be on Conan or Letterman and stuff like that. And now, you know, that dream's definitely dead. But I remember I got on Pit Boss, my entire family, we came in, we watched it. It was the worst fucking show ever because like my stand-up was on it. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, and they were just making fun of me because I was on a show for dogs.
Oh no.
You know, so I was like, whatever. Dogs aren't watching Pit Boss anymore, I guess.
That's funny as hell. Do you remember the Budweiser commercials where the what's up?
Those guys? What's up?
Right.
And then they changed it to what are you doing?
Oh, right. So I was working at the DC Improv, and one morning the owner took me to do something like Good Morning DC or whatever it was, right? And so TV, Good Morning DC, whatever. And so the What's Up guys were being interviewed before me. And then they went to commercial, and the What's Up Budweiser guys came up to the owner of the DC Improv, and they go, "Is that Flip Orley?" And the owner goes, "Yeah, you've seen his show?" And they go, "Show? What show?" "Well, he's a comic hypnotist." "Really? I didn't know that." And she's like, "Well, how do you know Flip Orley?" They go, "Oh my God, we saw him on Space Coast." And I have to say, Space Coast, the three people that Space Coast was ever meanest to was Charlton Heston,
right,
Ira Banks, and Flip Orley.
That's a good list, though, with Tara Banks. Yeah, you're in that list of me and Tara we were abused by Space Coast.
Yeah, I'm an A-lister in sort of the shit list. So
now you do a lot of talk shows and stuff. I wanted to ask you: is it easier for you to be interviewed by? I'm not saying I'm a great comedian, but is it easier for you to be interviewed by comedians compared to people who are just there to do their job? You know what I mean? Like a talk show kind of host guy, or like what's it like? How do you prefer it?
So that's an interesting question, actually. It doesn't matter to me if someone's comedic or not. You know that, in my opinion, the difference between a good interview and a bad interview?
Mm-hmm.
A good interview, in my opinion, is someone who asks questions, then listens to answers, kind of like what you're doing, and then interacts. Like, I'll tell a story, but maybe then you'll have a story that will relate to it somehow, and then we'll have sort of a dialogue. That I love. And whether it's like informative questions or a comedic interview, I like that kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
The kind of interviews that I don't like is when the interviewer asks a question and either doesn't listen to the answer, or within like moments interrupts the answer because they want to hear themselves talk.
Right.
That drives me nuts. It's like, if you want to interview you, why'd you invite me to be on the show with you?
It's like the Chris Farley show on Saturday Night Live, he like interviews a guest and he's like, "So how is it like making Dumb and Dumber?" He tells the answer and be like, "And what was it like making Dumb and Dumber again?"
Exactly. I mean, it drives me nuts. I won't say which talk show, but there's a talk show I listen to on Sirius XM radio.
Uh-huh.
And I listen to it every day to see at what point the interviewer is going to ask the question, and then within the first 10 seconds interrupt the answer because they want to give their view of it.
Right.
And then the first time they completely, in a very rude way, interrupt the person that they have on as an interview, I turn them off and then I send them an ugly message on Facebook. That's the game I like to play. Dear so-and-so, you're the rudest interviewer ever. I actually listened to your show for 7 minutes today and then turned you off.
Now, I don't know if this is true, but there's a rumor in the grapevine that you did a radio show once and the guy was so bad to you and he didn't know you were a hypnotist guy and he wanted you to hypnotize people on the radio and you weren't prepared for that. Is that true? Or
there have been a few of those moments.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Was this the guy you wrote the letter to?
No, different guy, actually. Yeah, no, different guy. Do you know how many messages I've sent to this guy about being a rude interviewer?
No, how many?
I would say I write him at least once a week. Hey, it's me again. I listened to you for 6 minutes today. Then you interrupted someone. You suck. I don't know what makes me feel good to do it. And it's not like they care. They don't. It's not like they're changing their style of interviewing. They're not. But I don't know. It's become a game for me.
Yeah. It's like one of those guilty pleasures you get because you get trolls your whole life and you're like, all right, I'm going to troll this guy. But in a not in a mean way, but in a way where you're just saying the same thing over and over until he responds. You know what I mean?
And they won't ever. I mean, they don't care about me, and they shouldn't. They should. I mean, it's literally just my. But you know what? Like, I have my own sense of whatever. It's my sense of humor. It's my sense of justice. It's my sense of whatever. So, like, I bought this is a completely different story, but whatever. So I bought a product on Amazon in May, right? I'll tell you what I bought. I bought a sewing machine. Oh my God. I have a pair of shorts. Like I hate shopping for clothes. So when I start busting a hole, you know, in the seat of my shorts or whatever, I would just rather patch them than buy new ones.
Right.
So I'm sewing stuff, you know, by hand or whatever. And I thought, screw it, I'm going to get a sewing machine. So I just something low end, just something to go ahead and sew a patch in the butt. So I bought this one, low end, admittedly, and it broke the first time I tried using it. So I sent it back and got a full refund. And it's like, well, my bad. I shouldn't have bought something that cheap. You know, I thought something really inexpensive for just, you know, the occasional patch would be fine, and it wasn't. Yeah. And I got a full refund and I was fine.
Yeah.
Yesterday, and then it asked me to write a review. So I wrote a review. It's like, this is actually the worst purchase I've ever made on Amazon. It broke, you know, within the first 20 seconds of using it, but Amazon was really good. You know, I sent it back for a refund, got a full refund. It's all good. Yeah. So that was May. So yesterday I get a message from the business that I bought it from, not Amazon, but the reseller. And they go like, hey, we understand that you didn't, you know, have a good experience with our products. We'd like to bribe you to take your review down.
Oh my God. This just got awesome.
Not their exact words, like, hey, we'd like to compensate you to take the review down. And so I immediately, because again, as a comic, when I'm not working, I've got a lot of free time.
Right.
So I called up Amazon, had to wait online, like I had to wait on hold for however long. Then someone came on. Then they didn't speak English, so I had to hang up and start over, but that was fine. And then I got a woman, I explained the whole thing. I explained to her, I go, they're bribing me to take down the review.
Right.
I go, so just so you now know, this has nothing to do with them. This has everything to do with Amazon. She goes, well, in what way? I go, what's your policy? Are you cool with your businesses bribing customers to lie?
Right.
Because if you are, what that means is I will never believe another review on Amazon ever again. First of all, I'll think that people either took down the negative reviews, in which case all the positive ones mean nothing. Or secondly, I'll think that someone changed the review because they wanted a free gift card.
Right.
So are you okay with that?
And did you ask them how much are they offering you?
No, because I didn't care. I mean, honestly, you can think I'm kidding. They could have offered me $1 million, and I wouldn't have.
Oh my God.
Just wouldn't take it. So the gal goes, can you hold on a second? I want to talk to the escalation supervisor. Well, yeah, take your time. I've got a lot of free time. She came back. She's like, oh, no, as it turns out, we're not okay with that. I go, well, you shouldn't be. She goes, yeah, we're going to delist them off the platform.
Oh, my God. That's hysterical.
I mean, now, on the other hand, if they said, hey, we're really sorry about your bad experience, we'd like to send you another sewing machine and hopefully this one will work better, or we'd like to send you another product for you to test drive. And like, if the new one works better, you know, if you want to like add that, like, that's fine. We want to bribe you to lie. It's like, oh, no. So, I mean, getting back to the radio station, like a couple times I've been sent out to radio stations and I was told that it was interview only.
Right.
And I show up there and they're like, so you're hypnotizing people. I'm like, I'm not. And then, well, you brought your volunteers. Like, look, I don't live in town. Like, I don't travel with a caravan. Like, we're not an improv troupe. I show up every night at a club and I go, here's some empty chairs. If you want to give it a shot, feel free to come and grab. I don't know these people. I've never met them. I don't hang out with them. They're just people that have been nice enough to come to my show and then chose to volunteer. And then it either worked or it didn't. Right. That's it. So I won't lie and I won't get on radio and pretend and I won't, you know, do a wink and nod like, just go with me on this. Like, I don't do any of that. And again, my sense of justice.
Yeah. Now, I have two more questions for you, Flip, and I want to respect your time. But this one's probably an easy answer. Have you ever done a show and hypnotized somebody, and then you come back to that town a year later, and that person is still goes to the show again and wants to get rehypnotized?
That happens all the time.
Okay.
So here's the deal. some people just love being hypnotized. Long before they met me or saw my show, they've been hypnotized before, and they love the idea, and it feels good, and they want to do it as often as they can. And so that's the kind of person who will go seek out any hypnotist and get on stage as often as possible.
Uh-huh.
Then there's also the group of people who maybe didn't know what to expect, had never tried it before. They get on stage, and specifically with me, and then hopefully the way I try to work my show is where the volunteers have fun and the audience laughs at the creativity of the volunteers, not at the volunteers.
Right.
So my hope is nobody leaves the stage feeling like they've been abused or that they were the butt of the joke or whatever. So because it feels good and it is fun and it is creative, and it usually is more fun in many respects for the volunteers than it is even for people on stage, there is going to be a handful of people from town to town who's like, man, and they'll come up and go, I was on stage with you last time you were here. Would it be okay if I did it again? And I'm like, well, yeah. They go, well, what if someone saw me last year and they think I'm a plant?
Yeah.
I go, well, that's their problem. I go, look, I never tell anybody they can't volunteer unless they're drunk or unless they're coming on stage to try to sabotage the show. But I never tell anyone they have to volunteer. So like if you were my favorite volunteer on tonight's show and you're to come back and I think to myself, oh my God, I'd love to work with you again because you were amazing, I still won't tell you that you have to get up on stage. Yeah. It's like, do what's best for you. If I've got 20 chairs, I want 20 volunteers. If I've got 15 chairs, I want 15 volunteers. If you're one of those that get up and get a chair, good for you. If you don't get up, that's fine too.
And then my last question for you is, with in today's day of age where Netflix is like giving comics specials and stuff, I've never seen a hypnotist comedy special, and I was wondering, is that something you would like to try and do? Maybe be the first. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is one out there, but I haven't seen one.
So, I mean, the short answer is yes. Would I turn down a special? I would not turn a special down. I think it'd be fun. You know, here's the thing. Here's the thing with fame, in my opinion.
Mm.
And again, there's different kinds of fame. So like if you did Letterman in 1985, I'm just picking random dates. Chances are, 25, 30, 35, 40% of the comedy going audience would have seen you on Letterman. Right. So a Letterman appearance or a Carson appearance could, like even just one appearance could elevate your career fairly dramatically in a very short period of time. But that was before streaming services and, satellite and cable and this thing and that deal.
YouTube and all that stuff.
So the audience used to be more homogenous 30 years ago, and now it's very, very, very fragmented. So even a Netflix special, which any exposure is good exposure, providing it's positive, obviously. But I don't know if it has the same impact that it used to 30 years ago. Mm. But like, so the benefit to exposure is that means more people will come see your show. And if more people come see your show, that means that you have more opportunity, like more bookings, more clubs, more towns. And since I love being on stage and I love working, the more opportunities, the better. Yeah. So in that regard, that would be great. But in terms of, I think everybody has an ego. I've got an ego. Everyone's got an ego. But my ego is not the typical, I don't think, show business ego. I don't crave fame. I don't crave being recognized. I don't crave going to a place and having someone roll out a red carpet or, giving me preferential, table at a restaurant. Like, I don't care about any of that. I actually like being left alone, raising my kid, being able to go anywhere, do anything and have fun. But again, the one benefit to like a Netflix special is then maybe the club that I was trying to get booked at in, I'll make one up, Roanoke, Virginia. Yeah. Right. We'll suddenly go, oh my God, we saw your Netflix special and of course we'll book you, as opposed to, who are you again? So that's the benefit.
Well, I wanted to ask you, where can the folks at home go and support you for when next time you're in town? Do you have a website or a Twitter?
So I didn't lose it. I got rid of almost all my social media during the pandemic because I mean, I was off stage for 2 years, and there was a point where I never thought I'd work again, but I did maintain, and I did keep. So I've got a Facebook page for, I guess, every Facebook user is now over like 80 years old or something like that.
Yeah. I'm hitting 82.
Are you? So I mean, I guess all the kids are using like a TikTok or Instagram, or I won't get to TikTok for love or money. I won't ever get it. I won't use it. I won't get it. But so I'm on Facebook, and it's Facebook Flip Orley. I'm on Instagram, again, Instagram Flip Orley. I'm on YouTube. Guess what? YouTube Flip Orley. And then any guesses as to what my website address is?
www.fliporley.com.
Oh my God, you're like a psychic.
Well, Flip, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today. It really did make me smile, and I'm glad we got this done. And thank you so much for helping me out.
It's my pleasure, and I'm sorry it's taken so long, and thanks for sticking with it and being patient. I'm thrilled that we finally got a chance to hook up. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, have a great day, Flip, and make people smile. I love you, man.
You take care. Right back at you, my friend.
All right. We'll talk soon, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Reza Riffs with Keith Reza and Alan Lee, right here on LA Talk Radio.